The Rules Committee will come to order. We are here for consideration of H.R. 2087. And we're happy to welcome the very distinguished chairman of the Committee on Natural Resources, my fellow Westerner, the gentleman from Pasco, Washington, former Rules Committee member, Mr. Hastings. And let me, before I recognize you, say to the committee members, I'm very happy to have as guests of the Rules Committee my lifelong friend Nick Powell and his wife Mary Ann, who are visiting us here. And he came to make sure that I'm going to leave Congress at the end of this year. And I assured you, yeah, you can see. If there are any applause on this side, I'm going to be enraged. Okay, the boo is okay. Thank you very much, Rich. So thank you very much for being here. And Mr. Chairman, welcome. And without objection, as you know, any prepared statement that you have will appear in the record in its entirety, and we welcome your remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Slaughter, and all the members of the Rules Committee. This bill, H.R. 2087, passed out of the Natural Resource Committee with bipartisan support, and therefore I request a modified open rule. H.R. 2087 will allow Accomack County in Virginia to move forward with plans to develop a 32-acre parcel of land that's adjacent to a NASA airstrip, which can be used for technology development. Currently, this portion of land has a restriction subject to recreational use, and my understanding is it just doesn't fit for where that is. They already have the deed to the land, they just have a restriction on what the use is. So what this bill does is simply remove that restriction and allow the county to move forward in a way as they see fit that's best for them, and they think the best way to do that is for economic development and technology and so forth. So with that, I would just urge, as I mentioned, a modified open rule to this bill, and I have to respond.
Well, thank you very much. Let me just say this is obviously, it sounds to me as if it's something that will focus on economic growth.
Absolutely.
Because the goal here, while at the same time recognizing the very important responsibility that we have of preserving natural resources as well.
No question. Keep in mind, this is a county that has a deed. The only thing that's stopping them from improving this land is the restriction of the federal government on essentially which is county land.
Sounds good to me. I'm very supportive of it and hope we will be able to have a free-flowing debate on it. Mr. Bishop. Ms. Slaughter.
Just a comment. It would seem to me that if we're giving away federal land worth more than $800,000, that should be considered an earmark. And I'm concerned about that notion to give away what it was obviously intended to be parked.
This is not given away. This land belongs to the county. It just has a deed restriction. We're simply removing the deed restriction.
Because it was from the federal government for parkland.
But the issue is it belongs to the county. It's a county land.
The federal government, however, did it not?
No, it has a deed restriction. That could have been part of the original. That could have been part of the original. But that was given under the condition where it had this deed. The deed is no more apropos, and so that's why they're asking to remove it. There's an offer to try to make a land exchange, and there was that didn't work out to the satisfaction of the parties involved.
Well, surely the information that I've got is that this was federal land transferred to the county for parks. No?
Well, what I could do is yield to my friend from Utah, who was the chairman of the subcommittee that dealt with this bill, and I think I said it correctly, did I not?
In addition to that, I understand that if any time that kind of land reverts to something other than parkland, it goes back to the federal government.
Well,
is that always part of the?
Well, yes, that's why it takes congressional action to remove the deed, so it stays in county control. I mean, we set policy in this body. And the policy was initially that could be used for recreational purposes. It didn't work out that way. And so now you have 32 acres that are sitting there essentially doing nothing, and the county says, this is a way that we think, because of where it's located, you can have economic development to create American jobs in that area of Virginia. All we need to do is raise the deed restriction, and you have economic growth. That sounds like a pretty good deal to me.
Well, I'm sure it's going to pass. I just want to quote the House rules, if I may, for the record. House rules say if a member requests a provision that gives spending authority targeted to a specific locality, other than through a formula-driven or competitive award process, that's an earmark. So
Lady yield.
I'd be happy to, Mr. Bishop.
What spending authority we're granting here? All you're allowing them is to use the land.
Which they intend to develop into an aerospace park?
What spending authority is being granted? Where is the federal government spending any money?
Because they're taking free land given to them that would be a profit.
Free land? So,
Federal land.
No, this
the
is
land-
county land. This is county
It's
land.
always been county.
It's county land right
Not
now.
all what I have here.
Well, no, let me ask you what you would rather do with this land. I mean, the federal government already controls 1/3 of America. What would you like to do with these 32 acres if you kept control of them? If it reverted back to the federal government, what should the federal government do with 32 acres, Mrs. Slaughter?
Okay, the county determined the land they receive free from taxpayers. That's not true.
They received the land, I don't know, I guess.
I think it was the 76.
I guess Virginia is not considered a taxpayer here, but the question I ask is, what do you want to do with the 32 acres? If you get it back, what do you want the federal government to do with
My
it?
understanding is the law was pretty specific that if it, the condition of this exchange was if it was ever used for anything other than public recreation, it would revert to full federal ownership.
Okay, what do you want to do with it? Recreation is useless. What do you want to do with 32 acres? What should the federal government do? I mean, you already got 1/3 of America. What do you want to do with this extra 32?
Maintain it.
Let me ask you a question. Why should this one member get an $800,000 earmark?
Because it's not an earmark. No money is being exchanged. The county has the land. What we have right now is useless land because the federal government put a stupid restriction on useless land. And because we have this bureaucratic mindset that unless you check off the box, something is wrong, the county owns the land right now. The county says if you keep it as a park, it is totally useless. If you want it to revert back to the federal government, there damn well better be a reason for reverting it back to the federal government. If you have a good reason for using this land in something other than what the county wants to do, then let me know what it is. But right now, the Interior Department is saying, I don't know what to do with the land, I don't need the land, I don't use it. It's just, I got to check off a box because there's a rule that says I have to do it. This is ridiculous. This is part of how ridiculous we are when it comes to public land. This is 32 acres that is totally useless. Now, if you have a reason for having that 32 acres owned by the Interior Department, I'd like to know what it would be.
How long has it been since the federal government transferred some of that land to the county?
I think it was in the mid-'70s, I believe.
I have no idea. 36 years
36
ago.
years.
36
That's the
years ago.
mid-'70s.
So it's just been useless all this time? They've not used it for park or anything?
It was supposed to be for that.
It is a
But
park. It is a park right now, but it's
You say that
useless
it's useless.
because no one can get to it. I'm sorry, it is isolated. You can't get to it. No one goes there. No one uses it. It is wasted. It is wasted.
Because it's
But they could use it with NASA and actually make something out of this land. If the
And what makes it so accessible when you turn it over to NASA that keeps it from being accessible?
It's not turned over to NASA. It's turned over to the county, and the county can then use it for development. Because of the road structure that's there, you can't get to it for recreation. You could if you actually tried, but it would take you a difficult time to do it, and no one does it. But it could be used to funnel for creating jobs. The issue is still at hand. The Interior Department has no purpose for this land. Why in heaven's name does the Interior Department want to hold on to it?
I don't have any statement from the Interior Department, so I don't really know, to be honest with you, how they feel.
That's okay, neither do they.
But I do know that the law says that it has to go back to the federal government.
Why?
Now, there were dissenting.
No, I mean, I'm sorry, Mrs. Slaughter, why? Why should the law say that? What purpose does it
The
serve?
law does say that.
What purpose? We create the law.
Certainly our views, allowing this county to capitalize on a parcel of free federal land while requiring other communities to abide by the terms of their agreements cannot be justified and threatens the integrity of this popular public recreation program signed by 9 Democrats on the committee. I have no further questions.
Mr. Hastings, how many Democrats voted for this bill?
This passed out with a bipartisan vote. The vote was 32-11.
I'm sorry.
So not a majority of those that voted against it signed the letter, apparently.
I think we've resolved that one. Mr. Nugent. Mr. McGovern.
No, with all the things that are happening in this country and all the challenges that we're faced with, I'd like to think we could come up with, we would be spending our time dealing with something that would put a lot more people to work than this. I mean, I get it. I'm not going to get into this argument here, but there are a lot of things that, for example, in the President's Jobs Bill that I think we should be dealing with. So, I mean, I don't have any questions. I just wish we get to something a little bit more meatier.
Gentleman yield?
I'm happy to yield to the gentleman.
I thank my friend for yielding, and I will say that a week before last, we passed out a large portion of the President's Jobs Bill. I think that the reason that we're doing this is that this is going to create economic opportunity in a region where I think that Mr. Bishop is pretty compellingly, as the chairman of the subcommittee that's dealt with this, he understands the issue, that it's a no-brainer.
Well,
I thank
well, I thank the gentleman for his comments, and I appreciate his characterization of what we did a week and a half ago is a large part of the President's Jobs Bill. I mean, maybe you must be reading off a different page than I've been. I don't quite consider that. Yeah, well, I don't consider that the kind of jobs bill I think the American people want. And on this, which deals with one, you know, if there's a comprehensive approach to, you know, to create jobs, I think that's what we should be talking about. And you know, this should be part of something else. But the fact that we're going to spend tomorrow debating about the fate of a park in Virginia, when there are still so many people around this country who don't have jobs, I'd like to think that we could be widening the discussion. So I don't have any questions. I appreciate the time.
Mr. Scott. Mr. Hastings.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The only concern that I have, and perhaps, Mr. Chairman, you can address, it is, do you see this as a precedent? And would we then, at some point in the future, want to say that even this little piece, we would want to utilize land? I can think of some things. In the Everglades, that national park, that I could see how it could be developed, and then I guess I could go to the National Park Service and say, you know, give that to Collier County, or give it to Hendry County, or one of the counties that are associated. Is it a precedent?
Well, let me say, to me, the only precedent involved with this would be that if there ever is a reversion of state lands to the federal government, and you can never reverse that reversion, that would be a precedent to me to never, ever give more land to the federal government. That would be the precedent, it seems to me. And this one here is something that simply didn't work out, and it needs to be corrected. Thus, the deed changed to allow.
But you do agree with me that there are other areas in the country, in the 1/3 of the lands that Mr. Bishop talks about, that could be utilized for purposes like Accomack wishes to utilize this for development. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
And if I'm being a good legislator or lawyer 10 years from now, and I'm arguing, I pick up this one and I say, well, we did it before, and I gather that it's done and has been done with other acreage, and toward that end, it probably is, at least in this area, makes sense probably.
Well, and also in the larger sense, you know, when the western states were formed, unlike the eastern states, the federal government kept a lot of that land for a variety of reasons, and I suppose it's a case-by-case basis. But if we should ever be of the mind that none of that land should ever revert back to the states, I think we're making a huge mistake. And that's, to me, that would be the precedent, because I can tell you, as the chairman of the committee, I would never look favorably at any land transfer for that reason, if that were the case.
I had one question, Mr. Chairman. That is, do you know if this land was originally acquired by condemnation?
The answer, I am told, is no.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Interesting discussion. I think we'll have an opportunity for a fascinating and free-flowing debate if Mr. Bishop has anything to do on the House floor.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That will conclude the
I move the committee grant H.R. 2087 to remove restrictions from parcel land situated in the Atlantic District, Accomack County, Virginia, modified open rule The rule provides 1 hour of general debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and the ranking minority member of the Committee on Natural Resources. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the bill. The rule makes in order the amendment in nature of a substitute recommended by the Committee on the Natural Resources now printed in the bill as original text for purpose of the amendment and provides that it should be considered as read. The rule waives all points of order against the amendment in nature of a substitute. The rule makes in order any of those amendments that are submitted for printing in the Congressional Record dated March 19, 2012, or pro forma amendments for the purpose of debate. Each amendment submitted for printing in the Congressional Record may be offered only by the member who submitted for printing or the member's designee and shall be considered as read if printed. Finally, the rule provides one motion to recommit with or without instruction.
You've heard the motion of the gentleman. Any discussion or amendment? If not, the vote occurs on the gentleman's motion. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. And Mr. Bishop will be managing this rule for the majority,
And I believe I'll be doing it for the
and Ms.
minority.
Slaughter for the minority. We are scheduled to meet at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon on the Health Act. And is that right? Is that right? Okay. I assume when I heard all this noise, I assume I was being corrected, but I guess I was right. And so we'll see you all at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Without objection, the committee stands adjourned.